Hey everyone, welcome back to Candid Founders, where we give you a candid view of a growing business. Lucy and I just got back from a really interesting day where we were learning a lot about delivery and logistics. We spent the day actually with an industry group called IMRG. They bring together different e-commerce providers, really big businesses, kind of everyone in between. There's a chance to get together and, learn what other businesses are doing and learn from the industry. So we kind of wanted to do a format where we share what we learned, go kind of back and forward, what was like the interesting call outs for us, and we hope you find it interesting. So Lucy, what did you find interesting?
I guess the number one thing I want to say is how useful it is for a business like us to be able to attend events like this. How many people would you say were there today?
Oh, probably about 50 to 100.
Yeah, awesome. So we met like the majority of these. So it's kind of like a round table discussion. You're meeting with all these different retailers. Specifically the guys today, the kind of people there were in roles of like operations, fulfillment, logistics, that kind of thing. But we've attended other events where they might have more of a broader fashion role in the company, and we learned so much from these people because within the room there must be hundreds of years of experience within the retail sector. We don't have, apart from Bearkind, we don't have any retail experience in the fashion industry. So it's super useful for us to learn from these people, and I just take so much from these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were also, this is the second one we've done. The first one we did was with fashion in particular. And what I quite liked about this one was how specific it was. Like you say, they have, not just hundreds of years of experience, but we do delivery and we think about delivery probably, I might think about it for 3 hours once a month, but they have literally hundreds of people thinking about it every day. And so you really have these experts that are the best in their field in this particular area, and they're there to share, and they're interested about, the breadth of knowledge that we have as a small business or an SME business. And so, yeah, I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. Like I met someone today and her role was specifically for this brand, the post-checkout experience. So as soon as the customer checks out, what happens? And a lot encompasses in that because there's, the actual delivery and fulfillment and that kind of, there's a lot of work required in that area. But the fact that they have to zone in and have a whole team that works on just that part of the customer journey is so fascinating because obviously as an SME, we have the two of us and a small team, and so we really have to kind of juggle all these plates ourselves. So it's super interesting to kind of hear from these people who are like experts on very, very specific parts of the journey.
Yeah, and not just about the journey, but also across different industries. So we had, large supermarkets, we had other businesses which did everything from kind of, garden supplies up to fashion and, shoes, etc. So it's kind of a broad audience as well. I think I learned some really probably granular things. But the first one for me was I couldn't believe that, one of the problems that we've been focusing on at the moment is the average order value and how do we get that up. And one of the things that we've done is we've put in a free delivery over £25. And our average order value is a couple pounds over that, but we heard a lot today that we really should be thinking about what's the medium order value and then putting our free shipping at that particular cost.
So that would mean placing the free shipping at like a £30 threshold. And so we push up those people even like a little bit further. Yeah. Yeah.
And give them that gentle nudge. And everyone was kind of unanimous around that of like, this is the best practice of what to do. And, for us, it was just like, well, okay, it's kind of about 3 socks for us. So let's give that a try.
Yeah, because we test things, but then having insight like that, we're like, oh, actually that makes sense when you hear it coming from so many people. So I think, willing to give that test. So that was a really good, that's just a quick win, something like that. If we can make that work.
Yeah, take that back straight away.
Yeah, nice, bit of low hanging fruit. One of the things that I learned, a lot of discussions about Royal Mail and how obviously we were really affected by the strikes. We're thankfully now back on with Royal Mail now, and we love using them and our customers love using them. But during Christmas, it was a really hard time for us having to use lots of different couriers. Our pricing went up. There were lots of delays. I think everyone was affected by it. But until today, I hadn't fully appreciated how much it also damaged these bigger retailers. You don't think of them as much. Yeah. But it literally was like an industry-wide thing that a lot of them were struggling. And we were actually in quite a privileged position that through our 3PL, they hold the account. So they hold the Royal Mail account, they hold all these other accounts with the other couriers, which meant when the strikes happened, we were able to just switch on and off the various couriers as we pleased. So we kind of went Every, and then Yodel and DHL, and then we did a bunch of them depending on the price of the order. And speaking to some retailers today who maybe didn't hold relationships with Yodel, for example, they weren't onboarding new customers. Business account customers. So we were able to just switch them on. We hadn't used them before. And I hadn't fully appreciated that we wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for the having our 3PL already having the relationship. So that was super interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting as well to see the different, experiences that people had with different carriers. There were a couple of people that had one of our main carriers, which is DPD, and they were saying they had a really tough time over Christmas actually because DPD acquired a lot of new customers, but probably acquired too many for them.
Yeah, and I think maybe because we were using a hybrid, we were using a few different carriers, we'd be able to switch it on and off. And one of the things that I took away from this is how good it is to have a variety of couriers available. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I can only imagine how difficult it was if you were just solely Royal Mail and then suddenly you just hang out to dry. And again, Every were taking on everyone, and that's why they fell down, because they just said yes to all new business. They got a bit greedy. They just took all the business and then couldn't handle it.
Yeah, and we saw that as well on LinkedIn. I remember at the time people were complaining to Royal Mail saying, "You've destroyed my small business. I can't post. I have had to stop shipping," which is crazy to think for a small business owner.
Yeah, really difficult. But yeah, we're back with Royal Mail now, so thankfully back on track. And it just makes me think maybe we should look at Christmas again and really think hard about what are our not weaknesses.
Maybe risk points.
Risk points, vulnerabilities. That's the word I'm looking for. In terms of this, where are we reliant on something breaking? We'd have no impact on if someone strikes or not, and so we should really consider what our backup options are for things like that. Because I think we handled it well, and we came out of it with 5-star reviews. Our customer service was on point, but I think there's other things I'd have done. So I just want to kind of prepare for the worst this year.
And that was one of the things that I took away as well. How many brands are really considering quite tightly the messaging that they're going out with to different customers? So maybe some brands are thinking, actually, do I want to own the messaging as a brand? Say I'm a supermarket or a retailer. Do I want to actually say to the customer, this is me providing these goods and I'm doing the delivery with Royal Mail, or is it just Royal Mail? And one of the things that we had during Christmas was, we were saying, okay, we're reliant on Royal Mail. We're an SME business. We're obviously not going to have our own logistics, but we're relying on them as much as we can. So, dear Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're trying our absolute best. We're working with these guys. This is the reason why we've chosen this company to do our logistics at this time. And that really saved us with all of our reviews. Customers were just happy that we were upfront. We tried to get out to them as soon as possible. If we made a mistake, we admitted it was their mistake and we claimed for the customer on the back end as well.
Yeah.
But not every business did that.
And I think we still held that accountability that, yes, we weren't just throwing it all back on Royal Mail and saying, guys, there were strikes, nothing we can do about it. That I think there were still steps we took to be the best we possibly could in that moment, and customers appreciated that. So I think you're right. I think we dealt with it in the best way we could at the time. Whilst we're on Royal Mail, something else I learnt today was that I didn't know that they're the greenest courier in the UK. Overall, they're the biggest, they're the greenest. And that is not something we talk about. And obviously being green is very important to us as a company, and we're just not shouting about that side of it enough. I think obviously we focus a lot on our 10% of profits being donated to animal conservation, but there's just so many other points of our business. I feel like this stuff is obvious to me because I'm living it, but we're female founded. We're predominantly a female team. We have flexible working. There are so many little things that our business does that I think we need to kind of pull together and start talking about more. So just one actionable thing I've taken away today is to really build out the sustainability side of our website and talk about all this stuff more and use the Royal Mail stats they've got. Talk about this, they call it the last mile. I think they said that they've got a lot of on the ground postal force that are walking and on the bikes, and that last bit is very, very green for them, and it's a very important part of the journey. And I was like, oh, that's really obvious. I hadn't thought of that. So yeah, that was a cool insight.
And I was really surprised that Royal Mail don't do that more often. I mean, maybe I'm not sitting there reviewing Royal Mail, but
yeah, like, yeah, why has that not come out in comms? Like, or I mean, again, maybe we just haven't noticed, but there were other businesses that were like, oh, I didn't realize that. You should shout about that more often. So that's what we're doing. So props to you, Royal Mail.
Well done, Royal Mail.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned, and kind of on that late delivery point, obviously it's not just Royal Mail all the time, but the most common reason for a bad, experience post-purchase is late delivery. And so how crucial that is for people. And our table was talking about how that can also be early delivery as well for some verticals. Probably less so for us. I can't imagine people are too worried about, socks being left on their doorstep. But there were some places that have, higher value items, and they were really concerned. Look, we want this exact window to deliver these goods to customers. And if we don't get it right, then they're going to be upset. Early or late. Late's obviously the one that people normally go to, but that was I think it was almost 2/3 of complaints post-purchase were from late deliveries.
Another really interesting stat I learned on this today. One of the people on my table, he'd come from a different industry. He'd worked in kind of like delivery and stuff in the past, and they'd done a test where they'd looked at if the delivery is late, what happens to the returns? And they found that for every extra day that the delivery is late, the returns go up. So it's almost like, and I wish I'd asked like what industry this covered. I can imagine it being something like fashion, where you've ordered something for a specific purpose, and then it turns up really late, and you're like, I don't want this anymore. Or the event has gone, or I don't know, maybe you order a gift and then the person's birthday is gone, but yeah, interesting. They obviously don't feel like any kind of loyalty to the brand and holding on to that item to be like, nah, I just don't need this. If you can't give me the service, I have no need for this product.
And we had a really good experience Christmas before last. We didn't have any problems with our delivery. I don't remember.
No.
This Christmas, lots of problems and more returns.
Yeah, more returns. I think it was more like, because I was deep into the customer service during Christmas. It was really busy. And it was, I mean, most of the complaints were about delivery. And then we get to the point where, especially as you're getting closer to Christmas, obviously people won't guarantee that they're going to get it before Christmas. And so then you get into the territory of, where's my order? It's still missing. And I'm like, I can't send it again because it's just not going to make it. So we did have a few people say, well, this has arrived after Christmas. I don't want it anymore. Most people were really nice about it though. So our returns percentage was super, super low. And that is another piece of insight that I learned at the last event and this one, is how lucky we are with our returns percentage, because it's for fashion, the industry overall, it's something like 40% returns rate, is it?
Was that for the industry, or that was some of the providers there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was a high figure. Like, it shocked me.
Shockingly high, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't even know what our return rate is. Like, it must be like less than 0.1% or something silly. Because the only reason really that we get someone initiating a conversation about returns is if it's a faulty sock, which thankfully doesn't happen often. It's usually if there's been a human error in manufacture, or they've been damaged in post. And even at that point, we tend to say to the customer, it's not worth the emissions and our money to pay for the return of this pair of socks. So, here's how to fix the hole. You keep them for yourself, and we'll send a replacement pair. Yeah,
and we've really had slim to none. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what else did you learn?
So another thing I learned, I was talking to a shoe retailer about product, because it's something I'm working through at the moment. I've realized that I'm not a merchandiser, and there's companies will have whole teams of people that are merchandisers and buyers, and they look at product and they plan months, years in advance on the whole product pipeline and what they're buying in and how the stock's moving. And it's just not something I have any experience in, because I'm actually struggling at the moment to work through this. So I was speaking to this person about how they do it, and yeah, she was saying that they do plan 12 months in advance on product. So if anything, it's just reiterated to me that I need to learn more about this and put more effort into running this product pipeline, because I do feel very, very reactive on product at the moment. Like, I've got a fairly good idea, But sometimes we just, we got some samples today, for example, and I've seen them. And I'm like, yeah, let's just buy them. But they've not been planned in. We had an idea one day and did it, and now they're here, and now we're going to buy them. There was no planning involved in that. Not so much of a bad thing, but it's really not how we should be operating.
We had on one of our tables, we had a business that was running kind of like a, flower shop cum garden center type of business. And they were saying that they had a few merchandisers which purchased a significant amount of stock. They thought it was going to go right, and they made a mistake in their model.
And it really? What happened?
Yeah. And it didn't nearly sink the business, but it got quite close.
They just didn't sell.
They just weren't selling. They over-ordered on quite a different variety of plants and other type of garden supplies.
That's really tough because that's perishable. Like, we're lucky that socks will last, but it's difficult with plants.
And I was surprised that, they had kind of two experienced merchandisers, and they still got it wrong. And we're kind of, I would say we're probably middle of the road. I wouldn't say we've gone too aggressive on purchasing too many, but equally we've not really left ourselves. I wouldn't even say, I would say I don't even really know how we've gone. I'd probably give ourselves like a B on our report card maybe.
Well, the other thing is we don't have a lot of data to work with. I would say I've been running the business full time for 2 years now. So that's really 2 years of data on B2C, and then on wholesale, which is also a big channel for us to kind of plan for now. That's only really been going for a year, where we've had kind of enough retailers to be consistently buying from us. So we don't have that much data. So some of it's a bit finger in the air. Maybe we're beating ourselves up a bit. I think we've done fairly well. Like, for me, it would be more detrimental for us to be completely out of stock. We've got a few lines out of stock at the moment that we need to restock, and maybe should have done sooner. But we've got a good amount of stock. And in speaking to people today, it's a very, very common problem to be really stocked in for Christmas because we're super seasonal. And then as soon as Christmas is done, bam, you're overstocked. Like, that's very normal. I
loved one of the sayings I heard was, you've always got a problem with stock. You're always overstocked or understocked.
Yeah.
That was, it's always...
Like, yeah. And I mean, there was the people here today talking about like software they use, and there was actually a software company there talking about what their software does and how. So there are actual proper businesses out there trying to solve this problem. And I think even the software, though, really, that could even fall down because it cannot take into account freak events. Like, imagine if we just suddenly went viral, or I don't know, a celebrity picked up our product, something amazing like that happened, bam, suddenly you're out of stock. That you can't plan for that.
Yeah, and we had some sports teams as well that were mentioning that exact issue. Relatively large sports businesses that would, say get a goal or have a famous player and then bang, instant change.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I learned that was quite, tactical as well was that the industry standard now is kind of an expectation of 28 days for returns to be free as well. And so I think the legal minimum is 14 days as a cooling off period, but it kind of goes up to most everyone thinks it should be 28 days. Anything after that, you don't need to worry. But in COVID, people were considering that.
That's interesting because that, for me, that actually doesn't sound that new to me. Just from a consumer point of view, from me having bought things online, 28 days is just what I had in my mind. 28 days is the term that we have on Bear Kind, purely because I just put 28 days because it's what I'd have seen everywhere.
Yeah, and it's what everyone else thinks. So it's fascinating. Another one that I quite liked was this idea of Wismo, which is an acronym for where is my order from a customer. I loved that because we get that all the time of, where is my order? And I'm just, of course, a corporate has made up an acronym for Wismo, which I love.
I want to use that more though. But that is a thing. Like, I think really we need to look at I talked about our vulnerabilities going into Christmas season. And one of the biggest things that we had, I mean, over 60% of our customer service inquiries were Wismo. Where is my order? And that takes time to service those customers. And so really, I think what we need to look at is having in place some kind of system. Obviously, I don't think we even paid for Tracked at that point. So again, because Tracked is a lot more expensive, so we need to look at, do we pay for Tracked on everything and have a portal, and will that bring down our servicing costs, and kind of work out, is it cheaper for us to just pay for Tracked and then we reduce servicing cost, or is it better to just take the hit? I mean, last year was, I mean, everyone's order was going missing. So it's kind of hard to kind of forecast based on that. I think the previous year we'd have had much less customer service issues. But yeah, Wismo. That's on my mind now.
What else did you have?
Well, the last one I've got down on my list, actually just a quick one. And I've already mentioned that I referred to ourselves as an SME earlier. There was someone on our table and she referred to herself as an SME. I thought she came across so well. And bearing in mind we're in a room with some pretty big names and retailers, the last time we were at the event, I felt pretty, maybe a bit imposter syndrome, maybe a bit just out of my depth. I just felt like I couldn't bring value to the table because, you know, these guys have, you know, they're doing it all. Like, what can they learn from me? But this time I just felt I could bring value to the table. And I think this person inspired me because she was like, I'm an SME, and then just kind of went into like the problems they're facing and things they're doing. And I think just in positioning herself as an SME rather than being a bit more self-depreciating, maybe we do this too much where we're like, we're just a small business, like we've just started, we're just a small brand. We're not just anything, like we're there we have a seat at the table. So then I started referring to myself like, I'm an SME. I don't know, I just felt more confident in doing it. So this time round, I felt like I gave a lot more value to the table. So I don't know, just a positive thought I had.
And what I quite like about it, you mentioned before, you know, we're previous bankers and we've never worked in fashion before, and we run a fashion business now, how really helpful it is to speak to these people, see what other people are doing, learn that we're not, you know, the odd ones out, that there are so many more things that we can learn from all these different areas. And yeah, just kind of walking the talk. I think one of the ways that we previously described the business was as a brand. And for me, that always kind of like irked me a little bit, but it was like, we're a brand, we're more here for the purpose. And so, you know, we're an SME that's really trying to change things up. And one of the things that I heard on my table was how important purpose was to some businesses, and how there were even some businesses that had a mutiny. And they were like, what do you mean? And they said, well, you know, we got to the point where we were so purpose driven that we actually weren't profitable for a few years, and we took a hit. We had to change the business up, and then we were all about getting back to profitability. And, you know, we're here to do a purpose and save animals, and we're trying to do it in the right way. It's not like we're, you know, sitting in a Ferrari taking that home. And so, you know, we're just trying our best, and how many other businesses were just trying their best as well.
Yeah. And I like your point around being honest with them. Like I kind of want to say, you know, we're an SME and be like, we do deserve that seat at the table. But also we do get a lot of value from being very honest with these people and saying, we don't have a background in retail. Like, we're here to learn, and we're learning so much from you guys. And I think in us being open, and I think especially, I mean, I'm not saying that so much at the tables, but more in the coffee breaks and the lunch breaks of the day, where we just sit next to someone and we say our story. And then they open up and they say, oh, well, have you tried this? And they give us so much advice, because these are really nice people and they've been in the industry. So they're just happy to share their experiences, and just like they genuinely want to help. So it's not about kind of like swaggering in and pretending we're like the big it, but just like being genuinely honest. Yeah, so I just really enjoyed today. I thought it was really positive.
Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed this format. It's something that we're just trying, you know, a bit new. We were just kind of sitting there being like, what did you learn? What did you learn? And we thought, you know, that it could be helpful to share that. So if you guys have liked today's episode, please like, subscribe, and follow for more. And as always, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below or send us an email. That'd be great. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye.